India's considering banning it and why they couldn't. But actually, there's a much more pro and positive way to approach this. That actually, you just think they've got this completely wrong, and there's a solid number of reasons why they actually should adopt Bitcoin. Should we work through
Yes.
those?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go through it. Yep.
Let's start with national security.
So national security. So basically, um, any country that is not the US or China wants to hold Bitcoin and more generally wants to build a lot of native skills in crypto because it doesn't want to be deplatformed from, like the international financial system or from communication systems. And this is a real concern. If you saw Macron and you saw um, AMLO of Mexico and you saw Merkel, and all these people were sort of shocked that a sitting head of state could be deplatformed by a tech company in the absence of a court order or anything like that, just a decision by a tech CEO, right? And again, whether or not you think that decision was legitimate, it's sort of like, if you might see a bad guy who is like, captured by police or shot by police in a really brutal way, and you might be like, yeah, that guy was a bad guy, but I really don't like that process that was used because that's not that's not like rule of law. That's something where if they'll get away with it today because that's a bad guy, but tomorrow it might be a somewhat less bad guy and so on. This is
Well,
obviously an
look,
obvious argument, right? Go ahead.
I mean, it's the same with the Trump ban on Twitter, right? A lot of people don't like Trump. They didn't think he should have been
But that's what I mean.
deplatformed.
That's what I'm referring
Yeah,
to. That's what I'm referring
yeah,
to. Yeah, yeah.
okay.
Exactly. That's right. So basically, whatever their feelings on Trump, it's the process that was followed that was so basically, instant. I mean, there was obviously a huge lead up to it, right? You could see it
Of
coming with
course.
the banners and stuff, right? But just like that, crossing that Rubicon and having a sitting president with 88 million followers deplatformed, and then following it like Parler getting pulled from Amazon and Google and Apple and Facebook and whatever at the same time, right? Like that was kind of like, whoa, right? It was quite a moment, and all these countries have realized actually, you know what, like we can be demonized like that too. 2019, Brazil, there was this fake photo of Brazilian fires that went viral. It was printed, Macron tweeted it. It was printed in the NYT, and it was fake because it was taken by a photographer who had passed away in 2003. There's a guy in the Atlantic who actually wanted to use that to justify war on Brazil, right? So, like, I mean, people are excitable now. They're just
Yeah.
cray. This truly false information that's really agitating spreads, and it's like sugar, right? Humans are simply not evolved to deal with this much sugary stuff around, and restaurants spike your food with sugar because it is advantageous to their business model. It's something which trades off your health to make the food tastier and to bring you back and to charge higher prices. And I understand why they do it because they got to make a living. But what happens is you pay the price and society pays the price in diabetes for that $10 Big Mac or whatever the price is, the fried nuggets and so on. You have diabetes in whatever years. It costs you way more than $10, right? And what used to be the case is you used to have like home cooked food where it may not have been as tasty, there may not be as much variety, so you didn't eat as much, and your family would essentially internalize the cost of both the food and whatever healthcare bill you had, and so there was a degree of check on both parts, right? Like even if you just talk about alignment of economic interest, forget about the love that they would have for you, right? Which is also obviously very important, but just there you've got the same entity that's doing both, right? So what's the analogy? What's the point? Point is that all of these outlets, all these individuals, frankly, everybody's found that you can just strip context, add exclamation marks, like just like the equivalent of sugar, you just juice your tweet with the most inflammatory words, right? And there's no penalty, right? It just goes, you're just trying that war every day for attention. This is the most surprising and crazy thing. And a nation can easily just get killed by something like this, as we saw with the Brazil thing. And so they don't want to, the smart ones are starting to realize that this is actually the real theater of cyber war, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has thought that cyber war was about, oh, they're going to hack my electrical grid. Oh, they're going to hack my power plants and stuff. And you know what? Yeah, that's a threat also. Don't get me wrong. That is, right? But it's also the much more in your face version, which is They just deplatform you from communications channels. They shut off your transaction capability, and they do so by attacking your reputation beforehand. So you're a bad guy, you're Saddam, and you've got the WMDs, even if you don't have them. And you know what? Like, if the US invades you and breaks all your stuff or whatever, then later in like 2007, remember Bush did the White House Correspondents' Dinner where he's like, "Where's the WMDs? Oh, I don't find them. I don't see them here," and made a joke out of this thing. You know, after the country had been invaded and the entire thing has been turned into this free fire zone. It's kind of crazy, right? It's like, oops, right? Go ahead.
Okay, so the next thing that's kind of interesting that really didn't cross my mind, but it's when you were explaining that, essentially because of Bitcoin, there's going to be a number of ultra wealthy people created, like beyond what we've known, and very quickly, and they're going to want to deploy capital. But if India bans Bitcoin, they're going to prevent the deployment of that capital in the country.
That's exactly right. So the what happens is the billionaire flippening is coming, right? And depending on the number, I actually have a post on this where I just kind of called that out separately on my site. You can make assumptions, and it's a very broad range, but somewhere between $100,000 and $1 million for Bitcoin, probably half the world's billionaires come from crypto. And that's remarkable, right? And there's a lot of assumptions that go into that. You can argue with all of them, but let's at least say a very good chunk of the world's billionaires likely come from crypto, right? And that's this incredible, rapid global transfer of wealth to people who are rational technologists, generally, but made big, large bets against the establishment. The more you have, the earlier and stronger you bet against the U.S. establishment. And that's really interesting, because it's these are folks who still are. It's this as I said, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, right? There's people who are still Western enough to believe in free speech and free markets. In fact, arguably the real West, and yet are like the new Western elite, right? So those folks who are global investors, any country that bans crypto is saying, let me ban a big chunk of global investors. Let me ban a big chunk of global entrepreneurs. In fact, let me force out some of the smartest and earliest adopters in my country, who are technologists and financiers who saw this thing coming and put in some money, And maybe the tech people saw it earlier and the financiers had more money to put in, or whatever, this combination of the two, right? But that is that's not a good thing for a country, especially a country like India, which is rising. It's not. I mean, no country is really rich enough to be able to turn down $1 trillion opportunity. You might think you are, but it compounds, and there aren't just aren't too many of those. There's very few things that are $1 trillion and growing like crypto is. Actually, there's nothing other than the internet itself, that I can think of as a unitary thing, So yeah, you're basically, people have this concept of, oh, crypto will cause capital flight. Actually, the crypto ban is what causes capital flight. And conversely, crypto legalization causes capital landing.
Well, you'd be a potential investor. There'd be
that's right. Yeah,
blocking
exactly.
you, man. You got a strong background in this. Okay.
I do. Yeah.
I think the next interesting area to talk about is also the strengthened monetary policy, which you talked about earlier, because you actually mentioned the fact. So what was the price you made the recommendation at?
What did price? I'll tell you. Actually, I mean, it's
is it the date of the article?
Yeah. It's the date of the article. Let's call it that, right? So that was February. It's an eternity ago. It's probably 30,000 there. February 4th, right? So 2 weeks ago. Okay. And so Bitcoin, coin market cap. February 4th, it was 37,000, right? So yeah, so had they put in $3 billion of Bitcoin then, they would have $4 billion a few weeks later, But
actually probably more, because if they declared it,
yeah,
the price would be way above that. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, but let's talk about this.
Yep.
Because you talk about India's love affair with gold, and I saw it. I went to India a few years ago. I had an amazing trip. Went to Mumbai and then down to Goa, and where I was in Goa, I took a motorbike up to the little local town, and there were just gold shops everywhere. I couldn't believe it. It's amazing. It just blew my mind. And somebody was explaining this to me. Tell me if this is true. Someone has explained to me what it is. It's a store of wealth. It's not just the jewelry itself. It's storing wealth, and it's a way of handing down wealth.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Absolutely. Because I mean, India gets it, right? India. For better or worse, India is like something where folks don't have the the state has not always been functional in India. The recent Indian state is actually way, way, way better than it's been in a long time, you know? And so because of that, India for a long time has essentially been, um, small L libertarian in that sense, right? Like practically libertarian. Emigration abroad, buy gold, like, um, have hard skills in engineering or medicine, like a lot of this is a big part of Indian culture, right? And it's not exactly the same. I mean, the firearms bit is different. American libertarian culture has that piece, right? But there are some significant overlaps, right? And so the gold thing is huge for Indians for all those same reasons. Exactly, it is something that's both a tire and it's part of our culture, but it's also a store of wealth where in tough times, buy down some gold and you might be able to use that, and that kind of gets a family out of a tough spot.
So in some ways, Bitcoin is natural, especially for because the state holds a lot of gold as well, right? How much gold does the state hold?
Yeah, like I think 30 tons or thereabouts. Actually, was it 30 tons? It was like 30 billion, maybe 600 tons worth. Yeah, 600
Yeah,
tons about.
30 billion. So a 10x on the 3 billion, they'd cross it. So Bitcoin hitting about 370,000 would happen, and yeah, interesting. So in terms of the monetary policy though, does it not come with any risk in that the price of gold is quite stable? Like, is it quite risky for a nation state to adopt Bitcoin and then see its reserves drop if there is some kind of bear market after they do it?
Well, yeah, I mean, of course there's risk. It's something which is it's a volatile cryptocurrency, but that's what international relations is. Like every decision you're making at that scale has some risk. I think we are definitely moving into a time when the world is just, I mean, this is a cliche, but it is becoming more volatile. It's not the post-war order does not hold anymore. The relative stability of roughly 1991 to 2016 is just no longer operative. Everybody's straining at the seams. And so the thing is that the biggest risk is not taking lots of small risks.
Right. Okay, so it's risky not to adopt Bitcoin because if it becomes a standard across other countries, you don't want to be the last person to buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, like cryptocurrency as a concept is not going to vanish from this earth. It's like saying networking is going to vanish. This is a breakthrough in computer science. This is a breakthrough in cryptography and distributed systems in a bunch of things. And it's clearly it's at $1 trillion. It's got 100 million users. It's not something that's going to go away. And so like of course you can basically say this is verboten, this is forbidden or whatever, and then kind of bury your head in the sand culturally and lose a generation of technology, sort of like North Korea or whatever. But that wouldn't be smart. You want to say, okay, look, this is happening. The world is adopting it. There's clearly some benefits here. It's like Bezos's thing, right? He's like, we've taken some bets that have been huge bets that, vaporized hundreds of millions of dollars, like Kindle Fire or whatever. It's like, but if you don't take those bets, you don't have the Kindle, you don't have AWS.
Yeah.
You never want to do a
Prime.
right? The bet the company bet is like the bet the country bet. It means that you put yourself in a situation where it's all on, like you're betting it all on black, like in the sense of like a roulette wheel, right? Oh, this better make it, and that means that excessive risk aversion is extremely risky. It's like the guy who doesn't change jobs and is at the same company and is at Microsoft, for example, forever, and has become a Microsoft lifer, and he kind of sees open source rising, kind of ignores it, and he just knows everything about Windows APIs or whatever, until one fine day he's laid off. And suddenly his pay, he doesn't have the skills to have the same pay that he had at Microsoft, and his consumption has been at the level that was so high that he can't just easily find a comparable thing, and so he suffers a pay cut, and he's 40 something or whatever, and that's a serious issue for him, and he just feels like he's declined in life. And I'm not saying that's the only outcome. I saw some folks go through that, and that comes from not constantly trying to reinvent yourself, right? If you reinvent yourself every few years and you push yourself, I mean, it's hard, of course. It's hard. The older you get, it's hard, right? I'm not saying it's easy, but if you don't do that, you are vulnerable to getting disrupted. And this is as true for countries, right? And the good thing is India is in that hungry stage, right? In its own way, it's hungry in the same way that Estonia is hungry, or and now Miami suddenly became hungry, right?
Well, this is back to your ascending descending thing.
Yes, that's right. The thing is that the entire terminology of developed world and developing world is just no longer applicable. I mean, I would much rather be in Bangalore than San Francisco. You know, like first of all, like huge parts of Bangalore are cleaner than San Francisco. You know, you can look. You may not believe me. You have to go there. Like,
I've been watching the decline of San Francisco for the 15 years I've been traveling there, and I like going to the Bay. I like going to Marin County, but the city, nah.
dude, it's like actually insane, you know. And there's so much that you could say about it, but it's 100% government cause. It's basically all these people who have optimized for popularity over truth, and there's a bunch of voters who have gone along with them, and it's just something where these people, it's like the cycle of civilizations or something. Everything just has an up and then a down, you know. I can't. I It's hard for me to fully understand what is going through the heads of the people who have made SF into what it is today. Um, but fundamentally, if you see them tweet or whatever, they just have fundamentally wrong premises. You know, like that housing is not governed by supply and demand, right? Or that all the tech people can leave and it'll just be fine, and screw them. It'll just mean that prices decrease, right? Or that it's okay to have like people being randomly attacked on the streets, and if you're against that, you're a bad person or whatever. And like, just these are just like stupid ideas. They're just like
Dude,
wrong
listen,
ideas.